Okay guys, so now we are moving on to the next part, the next leg of our subject, which is methods of costing. Okay, so under methods of costing, the first method would be job and batch costing. We will not be solving any problems in this particular method. Why? Because job costing is the same as your cost sheet. There's no change. We have already solved problems in relation to the cost sheet, so we will not be solving any problems. Coming to batch costing, again batch costing we will not be solving any problems. Reason being, it is very similar to what we have already studied. So I'll just quickly make you run through it. What do you mean by batch costing? So when various products or units are manufactured in a given lot, okay, that is called as a batch, and we calculate the costs associated with a batch because it is not possible to calculate the costs associated with one unit. So how do we arrive at the cost of one unit? We calculate the cost of one unit as total cost associated with the batch divided by total units in the batch. So this is how we arrive at the cost per unit. So things like medicines, for example, can you ascertain the cost of one crocin tablet? Not possible. You can ascertain only using this. Correct? While you are making the crocin tablet, it's not possible to ascertain the cost per tablet. So we manufacture tablets in batches. We figure out what the cost of that batch could be, and then the cost per tablet or cost per unit is calculated by dividing the total costs incurred in manufacturing that batch of units by the total number of units in that batch. So we will get the average cost per unit. Is it okay? So that is your batch costing. Now the question arises, how many units to manufacture in a batch? Which is the right quantity that I should manufacture in a batch? Can I manufacture whatever I want? No. Same thing that we did in our material chapter. We had EOQ. Here we have EBQ. EBQ stands for economic batch quantity. So economic batch quantity tells us what is the most economic batch size. Most economic batch size. Correct? So now why can't we manufacture whatever we want? Because of two costs associated with batches. First cost, setup cost. Second cost, carrying cost. Second cost is carrying cost. So if my batch size is more, setup cost will be less. Just like the way your buying cost was less, and carrying cost will be more because more units are manufactured in a batch. Similarly, when my batch size is less, setup cost will be more, carrying cost will be less. Since these costs are moving in two different opposite directions, the only way to minimize my total setup and total carrying cost together is by manufacturing in EBQ. So how do you calculate EBQ? Same way guys, root of 2DS by C. So what is D here? Annual demand for the product. S is setup cost per batch. Please note, per batch. And carrying cost is carrying cost per unit per annum. Same thing, no change. The only change is we had buying cost there, we have setup cost here, and there it was for raw material, here it is for finished product. So at EBQ, setup cost and carrying cost will be equal, and together they will be minimum. And setup cost and carrying cost are calculated per annum, just like the way we calculated our buying cost and carrying cost. So how do we calculate setup cost? D by EBQ. There it was A by EOQ. Same. Tells us, gives us number of setups. There we got number of orders into S, cost per setup. We will get a total setup cost. Carrying cost half into EBQ. There it was half into EOQ into C. Carrying cost per unit per annum. There per unit was raw material. Here per unit is finished product. Is it okay, guys? That's all. So this is your job and batch. We will now move on not to contract costing, to process costing. So come to chapter number 8, process costing. So we are moving now on to the next chapter, which is process costing. So very interesting chapter. Process costing is a method of costing where we accumulate costs for various processes. So you have process A, process B, process C. Now typically this is used for those products which are passing from one process to the other. So let's say in process A, I put some input, the input is processed, and in process A, I get an output which is not my final product, but this is an intermediate product. Okay. Now this intermediate product will become input to process B. Then in process B, it is further processed, and again in process B, I will get my output, which is again not the final product, but an intermediate product. Okay, and this intermediate product again becomes input to process C. It is further processed in process C, and now I have my finished product which I'm going to sell in the market. So typically process costing is used for these kind of products which pass from one process to another process. The most distinguishing feature of process costing is the output of one process becomes the input to the next process. So you have to keep that in mind. Okay. Now, is it necessary that this output will become input to the next process? It is necessary. But could there be a situation that this output may also have its own market? Yes, there is a possibility. So maybe this output may have its own market also in its own. So this output may be split into two parts, sometimes by some organizations. Some part of it may be sold in the market, some part of it may be sent to the next process for further processing, and so on. Okay, so there is no hard and fast rule. Now what we need to know is, in process costing, this final product which is obtained at the end consists of homogeneous units. Homogeneous units means absolutely identical units. Absolutely identical units. When units are not identical, say I have two different kinds of products formed, then will we study that? Yes, we study that under joint product and byproduct costing, which is the next particular chapter. But if the units are absolutely identical in all aspects, that is only one single product being formed, then we will try to understand that in process costing. If I do not have identical units, I have 2 or 3 or 4 different kinds of products being manufactured, then we will study that under joint product and byproduct. That time we will understand what is joint product, what is byproduct, and what happens. Guys, okay? Everybody? So now in this particular chapter, one more thing which is very important is what is the cost center and what is the cost unit. What did I tell you was the cost center? For which we accumulate costs. In chapter 1, cost center was any segment, person, plant or machinery for which costs were accumulated. So what is the cost center in this particular chapter? What are we accumulating costs for? We are accumulating costs for the process. So my cost center is the process. And what is my cost unit? How am I expressing the cost of the units produced? Per unit. Per unit. Depends on the product. So if my product is in kgs, then it will be per kg. If it is in quintals, then it will be per quintal. If it is per unit, it will be per unit. Guys, okay. So now comes the question. When my costs are accumulated for the process as a whole, how does my account look? Okay. So first of all, which account? We prepare something called as the process account. Okay. So the format of your process account looks something like this. You have particulars, quantity, amount, particulars, quantity, amount. So on the debit side, you record all your costs. All your costs are recorded on the debit side. And all your inputs when it comes to quantity. So what happens on the credit side? Your output and how you are going to value your output will be recorded on the credit side. Right? Now what could your inputs be? Or what could your costs be? Material, labor, overheads, other processing charges which they may give in the problem, as the case may be. Right? What happens to your output? Now input, ideally speaking, input should tally with your output. If I put 100 units, I need a count of what happened to those 100 units. Correct? Now it will usually not be equal. Why? Because of something called as process loss. So some units may get lost in processing, as a result of which my input and output will not be equal. Correct? Now, this process loss that I get, the formula for total process loss will be input minus output. Correct? Now when I'm giving all these things, please make a note of it, guys. You're not making a note only. So total process loss is input minus output. Now this process loss could be of two types. What? Normal loss and abnormal loss. So normal loss is expected loss. I know that this is going to happen. Abnormal loss is irregular, unexpected. Usually normal loss is calculated as a percentage of input. Okay. Sometimes they may ask you to calculate normal loss as a percentage of output also. Yesterday's problem, remember AXE, BXE, their loss was calculated as a percentage of output. Possible. So look for what is given in the problem. If nothing is given, then you will use this by default, percentage of input. But they will tell you what needs to be done. So please do what they have done. Sometimes they also say percentage of production. What is production? Opening stock plus purchases minus closing stock. Okay. Now purchases will not be there. Correct. So it will be opening stock plus input minus closing stock. Here there are no purchases now. If I'm in the intermediate process, then I'm not making any purchases. From process 1 output is coming. So you cannot write purchases there. Fresh input. Guys, okay? This is how you calculate normal loss. Naturally, abnormal loss will be process loss minus normal loss. Process loss minus normal loss. Guys, correct? Now, I have told you what happens to the quantity in both, on both the sides. So input quantity comes here, output quantity comes here. Output could be either finished output or normal loss or abnormal loss. Correct? Now comes the question of valuation. How will you value? That we already know. Apples. Remember? Apples. So, once again recap for those who have forgotten already. If you have forgotten in the last 2 days, I wonder what you're going to do till the exam. Okay. So, 100 rupees, 10 apples, cost was 10 rupees. I opened the crate and I saw 7 apples rotten. I knew only 1 apple could have been rotten, which was normal loss. So ideally speaking, 9 apples should have been good apples, but only 7 apples were good apples. Only 7 apples were good apples. Which means what happened to the remaining 2? This was abnormal loss. Now comes the question, who will bear this 100 rupees? Who will bear this 100 rupees? So 7 apples have to bear. No choice. Now normal loss apples say, I am not going to bear. You always knew that I was going to be rotten. You knew it from the beginning. I had already informed you. So I am not going to bear any cost. Similarly, abnormal loss says, no, I am also not going to bear because even I am loss. So you bear everything. They tell the abnormal loss. They tell the good apples. But now, good apples have a point to make. Good apples say, abnormal loss, you are not supposed to be abnormal. You ended up being abnormal. That is your mistake. Now that you have become loss, you please bear your own cost. I cannot bear your cost. At least normal loss had informed me. You had not informed me. So now, this 100 rupees will be borne by the remaining apples. Which remaining apples? 7 plus 2 or 10 minus 1. So, the good apples will be valued exactly like the way you are valuing your abnormal loss. And normal loss will not take any value. This was one instance. What was the next instance? When there was a scrap value for loss, say 2 rupees. 2 rupees was the scrap value. Correct? Now what happens? Same. 7 apples, good apples, 1 apple, normal loss, 2 apples, abnormal loss. Now, these loss apples can be sold in the market for 2 rupees scrap value. Correct? So now 100 rupees. How is it going to be shared? Now both of them are getting 2 rupees also. So now the good apples say that, see normal loss, I am bearing your cost. So now that you are fetching 2 rupees, you give it to me. What? You give it to me. It's fair. Correct? But can these 7 apples demand the scrap value from these other 2 apples? No. Why? Because these other 2 apples are bearing their own cost. 7 apples are not doing anything for the other 2 apples. So whatever scrap value comes from these 2 apples, these 2 apples only will get it. So now how will we price this? 100 rupees minus, because good apples are bearing this loss, the normal loss, whatever scrap value comes, will reduce this 100 rupees. So how much? 1 into 2 divided by, how many apples will bear this? 7 plus 2 or 10 minus 1. So this is nothing but equivalent cost per unit. So what is the formula for equivalent cost per unit? Total cost minus normal loss scrap value divided by total input minus normal loss units. So you need to calculate the equivalent cost per unit using this formula. Okay, once you calculate the equivalent cost per unit, you can value your output easily. So what did we have on the credit side? We had output, finished output, which is going to the next process, basically my good units. Normal loss, abnormal loss, correct? So once I get my equivalent cost per unit, with this quantity I will multiply it, get the value, right? Abnormal loss units are also valued just like that. So same equivalent cost into abnormal loss units, I will get this value. Normal loss units will be here, but normal loss units are not bearing any value. So what will come here? The scrap value. The scrap value. So in other words, all my costs will be here now. What am I doing? I am simply taking this minus this. What? This minus this and transferring it here. That's all. That's what I'm doing in my process account. Guys, did you all understand? Everyone? Yes. What happens to this abnormal loss in this particular example now? Abnormal loss has been valued at the same cost as good units were valued. Let's say that was 10 rupees. Oh, okay, let's say that was 11 rupees. Okay, just for the heck of it. So 2 apples valued at 11 rupees. Okay, how much? 22 rupees. But they realized some value, right? 2 rupees. This value, where did it go? We didn't take it in our calculation. Why? Because it's not fair to take. 7 apples are not bearing abnormal losses cost. So abnormal losses, you didn't bear my cost, I will not give you my scrap value. Correct? So now who takes the scrap value? Abnormal loss only will take its own scrap value. So how much is the scrap value? 2 rupees per unit, 2 apples. So 4 rupees. So 18 rupees. This goes to costing P&L account. Guys, is it okay? So in our problem, what we will also try to do is, along with preparation of process account, we will also prepare abnormal loss and abnormal gain account. So just like the way you have abnormal loss, you could also have abnormal gain. What do you do with abnormal gain? Just keep 2-3 pointers in mind. Okay. First of all, what is abnormal gain? What is it? Now I knew that 1 apple was going to be rotten. I opened my crate. All 10 apples were fine. All 10 apples were fine. So abnormal gain is what? The normal loss that did not happen. The normal loss that did not happen is my abnormal gain. So what do I do if there's an abnormal gain? Same, no difference. you'll still do equivalent cost per unit. You'll still take total cost minus normal loss scrap value. You'll still take normal loss scrap value. Why? Because abnormal is abnormal. It has not happened this time. Tomorrow if it happens, then it will happen. No, because normal is supposed to happen. Maybe this time it's not happened. Just because it's not happened this time, should I change my accounting treatment? No, I will not change my accounting treatment. Same thing. Total cost minus normal loss scrap value. Though it did not happen, you take full scrap value. No problem. We cannot change our accounting treatment. Divided by total input minus normal loss units. So you will get your equivalent cost per unit. Value abnormal gain at this equivalent cost per unit. But the only difference is where will you place your abnormal loss? I mean abnormal gain. You cannot place it here. So you will place it on the other side. So it will be to abnormal gain account. That's it. That's the only difference. Otherwise everything else is the same. Guys, okay? Everybody? So shall we move on to the problem now? Guys, okay? So this is about your process costing. Now, to move into the next concept of process costing, we need to understand one very important term, which is equivalent production. Now, whatever we have done till now is very simple, right? We added some units. Those units were completed. Then they were transferred to the next process. Opening stocks and closing stocks also we saw. Opening stock also was complete. Closing stock also was complete. But is it necessary that units at all these levels will be complete? No. It's not possible. So there could be a scenario where in the previous period, I was working on some units. Some of them were completed, transferred to the next process. The others were remaining in the same process, incomplete. So in this process, I'll have an opening WIP with incomplete units. Correct? Then I add new units. First I complete my opening WIP. Then I take my fresh units, start manufacturing them. Right? Again, while manufacturing units, I see some units become loss. Those lost units also may not be fully completed, but I discard them. Correct? And then out of whatever is left, I complete some, transfer it to the next process. Some are left incomplete in this period. So that is my closing WIP. So now when you have incomplete units at all these levels, opening is incomplete, closing is incomplete, loss is incomplete, what do? How can you divide your costs? So let's take an example. Okay. So what is this? It's not a biscuit. It's a doodh peda. Okay. Feel like eating? Yeah, me too. Okay. But I'll eat after showing you all. Okay. So doodh peda. Correct. Now let's assume this is one unit. This is my one completed unit. Okay. Right now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4 exactly half complete units. 4 exactly half complete units. So I showed it to you, right? Everyone saw? Yeah. Okay. So what did I say? 4 50% complete units. Let's say the costs that are incurred in manufacturing these units, okay, was say 20 rupees. Let's say that the cost incurred in manufacturing these 4 half complete units was 20 rupees. See, I have put stuff in this, right? That's why this half unit has come. So cost incurred in manufacturing this, all 4 of them, was 20 rupees, correct? Now how will you show cost per unit? We have to show cost per unit, right? Per unit means 1 unit. But this is half complete. Yes or no? So 20 rupees has to be divided by number of units. Only then I will get to know what is my cost per unit. If I don't have my cost per unit, how will I value? My units transferred, my loss units, not possible. So I need my cost per unit. So 20 rupees has to be divided by number of units full. But these are half. So now what do? I know that these two are half. So if I were to join them together, I would get 1. So what did I do? Similarly, here also, if I were to join them together, I would get 1. So can I say 4 half completed units are 2 full complete units? But here I joined it and showed it to you. In an organization where there are 10,000 half complete units, will you sit and join everything? Not possible, right? So you need a way to figure that out. What is that way? 4 into 50% gives me 2 full completed units. Correct? Now this 20 rupees can be easily divided. Yes, because I have converted my incomplete units to complete units. So 20 divided by 2, 10 rupees. Guys, yes. So this is the concept of equivalent production. So when you have units incomplete at various stages, costs have to be divided. But costs cannot be divided when units are incomplete because we express cost per unit. So what do we need to do? We need to first convert incomplete units to complete units and then divide those costs. So your process costing questions are not going to be so easy, where they give you 20 rupees and then they give you 4 units, incomplete units, and you just have to divide. It's not that easy. So the complications include, first of all, you will have incomplete units at opening stock level, that is opening WIP, process loss maybe, depending on whether it is normal or abnormal. There could be an abnormal gain, okay, at closing WIP level. So at all these levels, first of all, there will be incomplete units. Then, in this example, I gave you one cost, which was 20 rupees. What if there are many costs? Material could be complete to some extent. Labor could be complete to some extent. Overheads could be complete to some extent. So different costs given to you with different levels of completion at different levels. So that is second complication. Third complication, closing stock is involved. Now the question is, will closing stock be valued using opening stock, or will FIFO be used where opening stock has to go away to the units transferred, or will I use weighted average? What am I going to do? So again, we have 2 methods prescribed here. One is FIFO. The other is weighted average. So we will be working out problems on FIFO and weighted average. Guys, did you all understand? Are you all sure? So wherever you have incomplete units, we will be first converting those incomplete units to complete units. So the first method that we are going to see, since this is a crash course, obviously I cannot take you from the start till the full-blown problem. We have to directly start off with the full-blown problem. Okay, like one of the tougher problems. Okay, because you need to know how to tackle that in the exam. We don't have the time. In the regular class, I would have essentially given you one item, then I would have made it 2, then I would have made it 3 and added one more complication, then 4, then we would have gone to the full blown problem because we have the time there. Okay, so first we are going to tackle FIFO. So when we tackle FIFO, there are 4 things that you need to do when we talk about FIFO. Okay, what are those 4 things? The first statement is statement of equivalent production. This statement will help us in converting our incomplete units to complete units. First statement. Second statement, statement of equivalent cost per unit. In this second statement, I will be calculating my equivalent cost per unit. That is this 10 rupees I got now for my peda. So that I will be calculating in my second statement. So for each element, I will be calculating what is the cost per unit. Statement number 3. Statement of valuation. Statement of valuation. Third statement. Now that I've got my equivalent cost per unit, I can easily value what is being transferred to the next process, my loss, abnormal loss, my closing WIP. So that is my statement of valuation. And finally, the fourth statement, not statement, is your process account. So this becomes one full-blown problem. Full-blown problem. Along with this, sometimes, along with these 4 statements, sometimes you may be also asked to prepare a normal loss account, abnormal loss account, or abnormal gain account, whatever the case may be. Guys, okay? Everybody? So the next problem that we will be doing, the problem number 2. In that problem, we will do all these statements. We'll figure out how to do these statements. We will do abnormal loss, normal loss, or abnormal gain, whatever be the case. Whatever is coming between abnormal loss and gain, we will prepare that also. So that will help you in making your concept clear on how to prepare abnormal loss / gain account and normal loss. Guys, so could you all identify the difference between a weighted average cost problem and a FIFO problem? No, you could not. So see, for a FIFO problem, suppose in the problem they have not mentioned which method to use. What should you look for? FIFO problem for opening WIP. For opening WIP, percentage is very important. Percentage of completion. Correct? But for a weighted average problem, for opening WIP, I don't care about the percentage. I care about the cost breakup. I care about the cost breakup. So see this. Come to this problem. Because this was a weighted average problem, see here, they have given you the cost breakup. In opening WIP, how much value was material, how much value was labor, how much value was overheads. If this value is not given, how will you do weighted average cost? Not possible. But if you see the previous problem, they have given percentage completion. They have given 5,000 aggregate. Did they tell in that 5,000 how much was material, how much was labor, how much was overheads? For FIFO, it's not important. I don't care what is the cost breakup. But I care about this percentage completion. Because in this period, I need to figure out what are my equivalent units for which work was done. Guys, is it okay? And suppose in a problem they've given you both, like in this problem they've given both, na, see, they've given percentage completion also, they've given cost breakup also. And if they don't tell which method to follow, then you follow whatever you want. Easier method would be weighted average. If you like FIFO, you follow FIFO if nothing is specified. And if they've given both, then you can't do anything. But that will not happen. They will either tell you which method to use, or they will give you this clue. So if percentage is given, then you do FIFO. If cost is given, you do weighted average. Guys, did you all understand? Sure.